All right, once again, welcome to the 4 Core Skills Zoom class today. Super excited about this one. A lot of times we get a lot of messages and we do private Zooms or Zooms for teams. A lot of times we say, I have the 4 Core Skills books or audios, I've read through them. How do I put them all together? How does it flow? And a lot of times what we do is we get a book, we read it, and we don't implement it. And that's really what we want people to do, is implement it once they understand how it works. A lot of times we go for advanced skills like follow-up, leadership, all the advanced skills. And those are great, except for if you have nobody to talk to, then it's hard to follow up with somebody. If you want to be in leadership and you want to lead your team, well, that's great, except for you need someone to have on your team. Of course, that starts with the very basics of having someone to talk to. So if you go to any baseball, basketball, football, soccer game, you always see them practicing what they're doing. They're practicing the basics. So if we get the basics down, then everything else is a lot easier. All the work is done at the very beginning, especially rapport. But hey, let's get into the class today. So with that, Tom, I will throw it over to you.
Okay, and let's just take a look at what happens when somebody starts. They didn't study sales or psychology in school. They have no idea how the sales process works. They don't know how the human brain works. They don't know how to get a decision or even how to get their message across to somebody. They don't know what order things come in, how it's going to be processed. So what the 4 core skills does is that it just takes the minimum amount of skill needed to be pretty pro to get off to a kind of a fast start. Now, getting started is the hardest part for these people. They don't have any basics. They didn't study this in school. Their parents probably didn't tell them this or their job. It's going to be our job to kind of give them a 30,000-foot overview, a big view of what the steps are. So where they are in a presentation or where they are in talking to somebody, so they know how to manage things. So these are just the basics. Now, the 4 core skills match 4 questions all of our prospects have when looking at our offers. Actually, there's 5 questions. The first question prospects have is, who are you? But we're not going to cover that question because most people, when they first start, are going to talk to people who already know who they are, friends, relatives, coworkers, etc. So the 4 core skills matches the next 4 questions in the prospect's minds. And these questions happen in a chronological order. So let's take a look at these 4 questions that all prospects want to know when we sit down with them. So it's not about our presentation, not about our slides. It's about these 4 questions. So let's take a look at these questions now. Number 1, the first question the prospect is going to ask is, can I trust you and believe you? Well, this is called rapport. So how do people trust us and how do people believe us? Well, one of the ways is maybe our background. But right now, our background may not be in this product or this type of business or this service. So what can we do to get people to trust us and believe us so they will at least listen to our message with an open mind? And this is what rapport does. One of the ways of doing it is simply tell people a fact that they believe and we believe. And they say, wow, we think the same. I can trust and believe you, whatever you're going to say next. If we don't have rapport, it's all over. If they don't trust us and they don't believe us, everything we say thereafter is going to be meaningless. So the biggest thing we have to impress on them is to create some rapport first before presenting what we have to offer. What's the next question? What's this all about? What's the offer? They need to know the purpose of why we're talking to them. So are you going to be talking to them about investing in stocks and bonds? Or going to be talking to them about racing go-karts on the weekend? The next question people might should have is, what is it all about? What's the offer here? So here's where we introduce our business into a social conversation with somebody that we know. And this gets a little difficult for new people. They don't know how to do it. And of course, it ends up being really ugly. So a new person just starting, this is an exaggeration, but it's something like this. They're at a funeral talking to the widow and they say, wow, I'm really sorry about your husband passing away, but have you heard about the new rate cuts on the electricity bills? And, it's just ugly. So how do we introduce our business into a social conversation in a socially acceptable way? And that's called the icebreaker. This is the offer we make to people. Now, what's interesting is once we make the offer, instantly, our prospect will say this in their mind: is this something I want or not? This is called pre-closing. In other words, am I interested in this or not? If I'm not interested, let me get back to scrolling TikTok or social media. If it's something I want, well, yeah, the answer is yes. And it happens that quick. Now, our new distributors don't know this. They think that the decision is going to be happening sometime later after a long informative presentation. No, that's not when the decision is made by prospects. We have so many things we want to do, so much time. And if we're not interested in something, we want to drop it, change the subject, and move on to what we are interested in. So here's the neat thing about pre-closing. With pre-closing, we don't have to expose ourselves. We don't have to open ourselves up for rejection. The closing happens automatically. They figure out from our icebreaker, from our offer, if they want to do it or not. So if not, well, then we're going to be talking about the weather or the sports team. Now, the fourth question is, if I want this, if the answer is yes in their mind, then give me some quick details. And that's our presentation. So if you take a look at the order here, report comes first, icebreaker comes second, pre-closing comes third, and presentation comes fourth. And when I started the business, guess which one I started with? The presentation. I call people, say, I want to come over and give you a presentation. And as you can see, that was all wrong. Presentation is not part of the selling process. It is just giving them the details so they feel secure and they understand what their decision leads to. Say, wow, so by the time we get to the presentation, there's no more pressure. I don't have to worry about rejection. No, I don't have to really worry about these things. No, it's going to be fine. So you say, wow, most of the activity happens first. So here's a little chart from the book, The Happy Network Marketer. If you notice that chart here, it says rapport, 80%. 80% of our success is rapport. And this is why when we sponsor somebody who's super personable, who may be influential or trustworthy or a good friend of people, they have some immediate success right away because they already have rapport. That's the biggest step. And this is the step I didn't even know existed when I started. I thought it all started with the presentation. I didn't know about anything else. And then maybe after the presentation, I'd try some hardcore sales closes. And of course, that was ugly. But if you look at this, 80% support, what's the next largest one? Icebreaker. That's where we introduce our offer. And that's where they're going to make the decision. So if they get rapport correct and icebreaker correct, well, the last is only the closing, the pre-closing part, the presentation is only just a tiny bit. All we really have to do is focus on the first two, and they're going to be sort of a superstar. So the 4 books in the 4 core skills are about each of these skills. So let's take a look at how this would work. Here's the first skill, rapport. So if you're talking to somebody at work, you might say something like this: you and I both want more money. This job won't even give us a raise this year. And what are they thinking? Rapport. I believe you. I trust you. That's absolutely true. You and I think the same. I mean, the dream-sucking vampire boss takes little bits of our brain out every day, turning us into human zombies, not giving us a raise. Inflation is making things worse for us. Yeah, absolutely. You and I agree. So in this example for a business opportunity, we started rapport with just these simple 2 little sentences. And in a matter of, what was this, 8 seconds? We've established rapport. You say, well, that was pretty easy. And of course, they have a whole book, just on how to get instant rapport. It was the second book I wrote in the Big Al series because it is so important. They say, well, rapport is pretty good. So I guess once I have rapport, I can just move on to the icebreaker. And the answer is, yeah, let's do it. So next we would say this. So I found a good side business I can do in my free time. Would you like to know what I'm doing? Well, that was the icebreaker. And they could say, no, I don't want to know what you're doing. I'm a professional victim. I have no soul left in me. I just want to fall on the sword. Would you hold a sword for me? Or they say, yeah, I'm just not interested in anything. I'm just too stressed out. I just want to go home and use funny herbs and watch TV. Yeah, all right. So they can make the no decision here, right? That they're uninterested, or they can make what? A yes decision. And they're probably going to say, yeah, I'd like to know what you're doing. Now, that was the icebreaker where we introduced what's interesting, what our offer is, into the conversation. They want to know what we're talking about. So icebreakers are easy to do. All we have to do is probably for the new person is have them read the book or listen to the audio, or we teach them some icebreakers to get started. So the second step, icebreaker, and they make what happens. Well, let's take a look at step number 3. Once they hear icebreaker, they will make an instant and immediate decision, yes or no. It's automatic. Well, we don't have to do some sleazy salesman close like, well, you do love your family, don't you? Or any 3-year-old can see that this will be a great business opportunity. We don't do any of that. It all happens automatically in their mind. And based upon their situation and their current programs in their mind, it's automatic. They don't even have to think about it. It's going to be an instant yes or no. And this is when the magic happens. Now, pre-closing, this book has a whole bunch of more sentences that we could say to enhance this, to prime them, etc. But the point is, people make closing like this big thing they have to do when it all happens way early. And that's the pre-closing. Now, let's say they made the decision no. Well, then we're done. If they made the decision yes, let's do step number 4. The 4th basic skill is the presentation. And we'll probably say, okay, then we should talk. And they say, well, when? And I says, well, we can't talk now. We're at work, maybe during coffee break or Saturday during the barbecue. They say, well, let's talk at coffee break. I can't wait. So it's not even having to get an appointment. No stress there. They just decide when we should talk. Now, what's our presentation? Now, the presentation, we have a couple of options here. The best option, the number 1 option, is the 2-minute story. And for those of you familiar with the 2-minute story, in about 1 minute and 10 seconds or 1 minute and 15 seconds, it takes less than 2 minutes, we can tell them what they need to know. What do they need to know? They need, well, what kind of business you're in, you know, if it's interesting to me or not, how much money can I earn? And what do I have to do to earn that money? Or you may prefer a slightly simpler version called the 1-minute presentation, and that might be appropriate for your needs also. But either one is the presentation. And if you remember the chart from earlier, it's only a small portion of our success. So I tell people, don't get too hung up on it. But I will say that once people take the time to master the 2-minute story, study and create their own using the templates in the book, they never want to go back. It is the easiest, most stress-free way of talking to people, which creates an instant connection. So either of these books would work. We recommend the 2-minute story, but if they prefer something simpler, the 1-minute presentation is great also. Just 2 different ways to take care of it. You say, all right, so that's the 4 core skills. That makes sense. That's how people get started. So let's put them all together, and we'll do a little presentation all together. Remember these sentences? Let's put them together. Let's do it first with rapport. You and I both want more money. This job won't even give us a raise this year. So I found a good side business I can do in my free time. Would you like to know what I'm doing? And it's tick, 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 tick. The prospect's brain is going, yes or no. And most likely they'll probably say something like, yes, with no stress. So let's continue. What are the next sentences? Well, the pre-closing, the prospect makes an automatic yes or no decision. That happens next. And then finally, the presentation, we say, okay, we should talk. And the 2-minute story or the 1-minute presentation, or even something simpler that you may have, depending if you're just going to represent a product or a service. It might be even simpler where you don't need a 2-minute story, 1-minute presentation, which would explain the opportunity. They say, gosh, so that would mean that when somebody sits down with a prospect and they start questioning them and not believing, that just would tell them, they didn't do rapport, that they need to work on their rapport skills. Do one of the techniques from the rapport book. So here's the next question. Say, this is great for opportunity, but what about my retailing products or services? All right, so let's try it. If you have a product or service, I'll do a quick example, and you can see that the same pattern happens, except at the very end, when we do the presentation, we're not doing an opportunity presentation. We're going to explain our product and a service in a very simplified way so they can say, yeah, that covers the details I need to know. So in this example, very quickly here, to save you time, we're just going to do a diet shake example. So here it is, rapport. We could say to, let's say you're talking to me, and say, oh, yeah, Big Al's kind of fat. So you might say to me, dieting is hard. Eating funny foods, exercising, and starving isn't fun. And the weight always seems to come back. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah, you read my mind. I exercised twice last year and it didn't help at all. And I hate going to bed when I'm hungry, and I don't like eating funny foods. Salads are awful. And in instant rapport, I believe you and I can trust you. You say, well, I better move on to the icebreaker. And you would say, well, would you like an easier way to lose weight? Just by changing what you have for breakfast. I'm thinking, easier way to lose weight? Wow. What do you think fat people like me are going to say? Yes, bring it on. I want an easier way to lose weight because all my other ways haven't worked. And just changing what I have for breakfast sounds relatively easy. So let's move on. Next step. Remember pre-closing? What is fat people like me thinking? We're thinking, us fat people, we're drooling right now. We're quickly saying, yes, yeah. All I have to do is change what I have for breakfast. That's going to be the easiest diet in the world. So we might say, this sounds great, tell me more. And you say, well, here's how it works. You just drink this delicious chocolate or strawberry shake every morning for breakfast instead of that, greasy McMuffin that you have every morning. It's magic. And it's cheaper and more convenient than a stop at McDonald's. So what flavor do you like? You say, oh, that was a pretty easy presentation. That didn't take very long. And you say, I could do these 4 steps in less than a minute. No matter if it was product or service or even opportunity, if I did the 1-minute presentation. And that's the power of the 4 core skills, knowing exactly what we need at each step during the presentation. So here's a picture of the 4 books along with the URL for the core skills. And Keith has got them all available together as an audio set, and also some extra audios, and I'll let Keith tell you about that. But these are the 4 books which kind of correlate to the 4 core skills. So Keith, any other things that we left out here so people can instantly go to work?
No, sounds great. And yes, we have everything on paperback, which a lot of people prefer, ebook. And then, of course, if you want the audios, we have the audios available up on all the platforms. And if you want to give it a couple of days, if you're really into audios, give us 2 days. We're actually going to give you a couple of bonuses. So if you're into audio, definitely wait 2 days, and we're going to send out a special email for that. That way you get just a little bit of bonuses. But if you like the paperbacks, by all means, get those right away, and good luck with everybody. And we look forward to connecting with everybody on the Network Marketing Questions Facebook group page. A lot of times people feel like, I want to join a community. We have that community available. And just by doing the search function, you can get some killer questions answered, feel free to ask questions. That's why it's called network marketing questions. And I see a lot of people recognize that we'll be seeing everybody on the masterclass. We also have a free podcast that we do every single week. We're up to 120 some episodes, I believe. So definitely stay connected. That's the most important part. And I appreciate everyone's time today. Thanks again.